Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you very much. If you've come back for part four, as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've created the plot for this book. Um, the imprint that I am choosing to send this one off to, I'm going to submit this manuscript to Harlequin, and they have an imprint which is referred to as intrigue or suspense. And the prerequisite for that is they want several subplots, each of which are well developed and exciting. Characters have to have some form of development change. Perhaps they have to internally reflect, learn something. There can be some scenes of an adult nature, but they wouldn't be explicit, and that wouldn't be a large percentage of the manuscript. So those are the parameters, and this is what I'm writing about. So I mentioned before there is a prologue which introduces the concept of there's a TV station. So I've created a fictitious Channel 6 TV station here in New Orleans. Apparently there was a TV station here years ago, a studio. So I'm going to research that to make it realistic. And we open the prologue just having a window into the world of a character called Peter. Now, he is a mild-mannered guy. He works in IT at this TV station, and he is opening an email on his screen, which is explosive. We don't get all the full information. That's one of the ways that I try to build suspense. So withholding some information from the reader, but just enough that it raises questions in their mind. We later find out that this email is between Lucky, the main protagonist, Ham Roscoe, who is a fictitious local politician I've created, and the Spider, who is a crime boss. So there's an organized criminal syndicate operating in New Orleans. Again, bears no relation to anyone living or dead. This is all from my imagination. So this email connects these people, and each one of the three of them cannot afford for that to become public. Their connection is secret, and each of them has a great deal to lose should this become known. Peter knows that, and he has the proof. He has this evidence with which he will blackmail them. Let's see whether or not that goes well for him. Then chapter 1. So we open with Lucky, and he is the main character. He's a man living in New Orleans with his wife, Anne. He's doing very well. And his whole story is something like the fable about Midas. You remember everything you touch turned to gold. And the tagline for this book, for the marketing, I think will be something like, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? Because I love that concept. Lucky has great self-belief because everything always seems to have a way of working out for him. Although throughout the book, we learn some of the ways that happens, and there is a cost. He has affairs, and true to form, in the first chapter, he is discussing with his wife the fact that he finds their hot new neighbor, Rebecca, very attractive. This is causing jealousy and insecurity in his wife, Anne, and it's harming their marriage. But he seems to be either unaware or uninterested in that. And they both work at the Channel 6 TV station. He's a star, he's in front of the camera, and she is a producer. Then chapter 2, Lucky has the first of several mysterious moonlit meetings in nearby Laborde Lookout in the forest, which is the highest point in New Orleans, and he's keeping these meetings a secret. So the first time that we as the reader observe him disappearing off to this place at night and making sure he's not followed and not telling anyone where he's going, we also don't know, so that builds the suspense. When he returns to his home, this neighbor that he's mentioned has had a flood in her house next door, so she has had to come round and throw herself on the mercy of him and his wife Anne. And Rebecca begs to stay with them, live on the couch while her house is, put back into some sort of working order. It's been destroyed by this flood water. So there's tension. The three of them are going to have to live together temporarily. Chapter 3, we go to the TV station at Channel 6, and Anne, within her job, has to interview stars live on the air. And today she is doing just that with Lucky, her husband. So she asks him questions. It's very cute. They are TV's golden couple. They're very popular, particularly he is very popular with viewers. But Lucky chooses to make some cryptic remarks in his interview about meeting a fairy godfather in the forest, and that's how that's what he ascribes all of his good fortune to, and why everything always seems to work out for him. The two of them return home, and Lucky is attracted to Rebecca, who's temporarily camping out in their house, and Anne is very angry about this, and she's jealous of Rebecca and finds her annoying. So there's tension in the house. Then by chapter 4, we go back to Peter. There's a complete change of scene, because at this point he has committed this cyber crime. He's actually responded to this email posing as one of the people involved in this criminal syndicate triangle, which is Lucky, Ham Roscoe the politician, and the Spider, who is the crime boss. So Peter has posed as Ham Roscoe, and he has sent a response to the other two. Now, Peter wants further evidence to make his blackmail more lucrative. So he chooses to, again, not be noticed. He doesn't want to be followed. He doesn't want anyone to know about this, but he makes a mysterious overnight journey to a farm in Texas. He drives after work from the TV station, has to get there and turn around and come back again before he's due at work the next day so that nobody will notice. But he seems to be followed from the TV station. Now, chapter 5, the viewer, or the reader, is actually privy to what these mysterious meetings of Lucky's are in the forest. So he's meeting two foot soldiers of the organised crime syndicate who fix things for him and make him so fortunate. Lucky is given his orders by these people on behalf of the Spider, and then Lucky makes sure he has an alibi so that nobody realises where he's been. He uses the fact that his friend Tony jogs past a certain point nightly, having completed some exercise in City Park. So Lucky ensures that he joins him at just the right moment, so it looks as if they were jogging together for the full 2 hours. Lucky takes Tony back to his house for a bite to eat, cementing that alibi. And Lucky also chooses to bid the horn of his car as he comes back, which gives the impression that he's just letting his wife know that he's about to arrive, but of course also has the effect of making sure that everybody in the street sees him and notes that time. So he's just building his evidence that he was not where he actually was, because he wants to cover his tracks for these meetings. Lucky goes home and has sex with his wife. He's trying to reassure her about the presence of Rebecca, not harming their marriage. But then when Anne has fallen asleep, unbeknownst to her, Lucky then attempts to seduce Rebecca on the couch in his home. But Rebecca rejects him. She's not interested in him. Then we go to chapter 6, and we see where Peter has managed to drive to in Texas. So there's a farm, and it's the first time we learn that there are trafficked women there being held. There's a character called Jose. He is something of he's morally ambiguous. He is possibly a good guy who's in an extremely difficult situation, and he's chosen to work with some very bad people to get money to support his family. But the upshot of it is that he's holding these women on behalf of the Spider and his criminal syndicate. And he can take no prisoners, no pun intended. Jose is a desperate man. Peter is in danger, especially turning up unannounced. So Peter has it confirmed with his own eyes that there are these women being held, and he knows that Roscoe knows about this trafficking, and it's Roscoe, as the local politician, is allowing this to happen on his watch in Louisiana, and is not taking the appropriate steps to put a stop to it. Which is further evidence which Peter will use to blackmail him. This is going to, bring Peter a great deal of money, because there's no way that the politician would want this to ever come out, particularly as he's running in the primaries, we've learned. On the drive back, Peter stops at the gas station, and the guy at the register mentions he thought he saw somebody slide underneath the truck, but Peter is completely spooked. He doesn't check. He just drives back to New Orleans because he's under pressure. He needs to be back at his desk in the morning. He doesn't want anybody to suspect that he's been out all night doing something unusual. Chapter 7. So Anne wakes up and she mistakenly thinks that because Lucky and Rebecca are both asleep on the couches out in their living quarters in their den, Anne assumes that Lucky has had sex with Rebecca. That was his plan, but unfortunately for him, Rebecca was not interested. So Anne is devastated. She feels her marriage is over because of her husband's infidelity, and she storms off to work at the TV station early that morning. She's so distracted and upset, she doesn't question, perhaps as much as she normally would, the fact that there's a young girl called Nina, about 17 years old, who's wandering around the TV station without an ID badge. But Anne is a motherly sort. She takes Nina under her wing, tries to help her, assumes it's a new intern, and that just the message hasn't been passed on from HR or what have you. But what Anne doesn't realise, but we are starting to realise, is that Nina is one of the illegal migrants who was being held at the farm in Texas. And when she saw Peter arrive in his truck, she saw this as her opportunity to escape and go somewhere else. So she has stowed away to New Orleans in Peter's truck. And it was her that the gas station registered guy saw creeping underneath. So she's managed to cling on underneath. And then during the course of the journey, she's clambered her way up and has rode all the way back to Louisiana from Texas in the flatbed of the truck. At the same time, within this chapter, at the TV station, there's a rumor going around the staff there that there's been a very significant data breach. And one of their biggest clients, which is the politician Ham Roscoe, may end his contract with them because he is dismayed about the fact that this could be allowed to happen. Now we move to chapter 8. Rebecca's insurance claims. She is the neighbour who had the flooded house. It's surprisingly been fast-tracked, and she's received the money in record time, and she's able to get the work completed, and her house is ready. She can move back in. We know, of course, that this is due to Lucky's criminal connections, so he was able to make that happen for her. She's jumped the queue. She's, her claim has been brought up to the top of the pile. Lucky sees one of the foot soldiers on his way to work, and he gets spooked by this. Lucky tries to patch things up with Anne, his wife, at work, but she thinks he's just been unfaithful again. She won't speak to him. She's considering whether she wants to remain in the marriage. And at the same time, Lucky makes a joke to Peter just off the cuff about Peter arriving late to work. And also about Peter's team being responsible for this data breach. But Peter takes this all very seriously. He can't afford anyone to have noticed that he was indeed late for work because he'd been out driving all the way to Texas and back. So Peter, a desperate man and not a very accomplished criminal, it's his first foray into this type of underworld, hits Lucky on the head and kidnaps him. He doesn't know what else to do to silence him. So we don't know what is going to become of Lucky, but we know that he is out of control and is being held by Peter and possibly the Spider's men too. Chapter 9, Anne goes to Rebecca's house angrily after work. She assumes that she will find her husband Lucky there, but Rebecca says they're not having an affair. She's not interested in him. And the two women become closer. It seems that they will be friends, and they're on the verge of flirting together as well. So chapter 10, we return to Lucky, and he comes to. He doesn't know where he is. He's being held in a basement, which is bare. His ID badge from the TV station is gone. His wallet is gone. All he has is some Lucky Strike cigarettes. He doesn't have a phone, of course. That's been taken by Peter to make sure that he can't escape. Where he's being held is one of the restaurants being run by the organised crime gang, which is staffed by traffic workers. Lucky's been knocked out and he's also been drugged, so his thoughts are somewhat confused. Peter comes down to the basement, escorts him to be questioned by one of the gang, but they're scared when they learn that Lucky is already working for the Spider. They didn't see that coming. So Peter is told that he will have to kill Lucky for safety, and that's a cliffhanger. So at the end of chapter 10, I would say that is the beginning of the book. I recommend a 3-part structure of roughly about 10 or 12 chapters for the beginning, the middle, and the end segments. And it's good to end on a cliffhanger if you can, not at the end of the book. Cliffhangers are good for the ends of sections and for the ends of chapters. But by the end, we need to close off all of these plots and all of the subplots. If you'd like to tune in again, I will tell you a bit more about the middle and the end of the book. And thank you so much for being with me.